I'm going to give you some information about the First Impressions program, some results of a visit that a volunteer group did to St. John as part of that program, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have through K-State Research and Extension, and some of it through the Department of Commerce as well. And we'll go ahead and get started here. Now, the First Impressions program, if you're not familiar with it, it's a lot like a secret shopper program. In that, like a secret shopper program, a corporate office might send out anonymous shoppers to a business to get an idea of what the customer service is like, the selection of the products is like, the decorations, the landscaping, and then they use those reports that they get back to improve their customer service experience or their profit, depending on what they're looking for. The First Impressions program is very similar to that. A community will sign up and they'll say, we want to know what our community looks like through the eyes of a visitor, maybe somebody who wants to move here, somebody who wants to start a business here. But our residents, some of them have lived here for months, years, decades. They might not see everything that a new person would see as they're coming into town. So that community signs up, we get the application, and we match them with another community within 90 minutes to 2 hours away that's of similar size. We try to go that far away so it's not a community that you would normally go to for sporting events or to go shopping or go to church, so you don't already have a preconceived notion of what that community has to offer. We get the reports back from the volunteers that visit that community. We compile them together, we go and take pictures of everything that they saw, and we come and present a public presentation. And now, this doesn't work. Okay.
Oh, press the. Do you have the USB?
I do. It was working just a little bit ago.
You got a red circle. Oh, not that.
Try that. There we go. All right. So the city of Conway Springs in Sumner County signed up for the program. We sent out a call to other communities of similar size within that radius, and St. John said, yes, we would be interested in participating in this program as well. It's a free program. Once we got both communities partnered up, we trained the volunteers. I came here, I went to Conway Springs, and I trained the volunteers to look for certain things. You'll see those things on this report, on this team report form. Each visitor to town here had one of these report forms blank. They filled it out, and we compiled that information together. The results are presented tonight. They actually visited on 3 different dates: August 8th, August 24th, and August 26th. Now, once you get the results, it's up to you guys what you want to do with them. The city council may decide we're going to address some of the issues in town. There may be some things that you want to preserve that you kind of take for granted right now. That'll be shown in the presentation here. But it's up to you, really, what you want to do with these results once I present them to you. This is how somebody views your community. If you already have community improvement initiatives, if you already have economic development initiatives in town, this is a great way for you to evaluate their success. Do people notice what you're doing? If you don't know what to start working on in town, but you think you ought to do some community improvement, some community development work, this is a great way to identify some potential projects. I'm just the messenger. The results are all from the visitors that came. So if you don't agree with the observation, be curious. Ask yourself, why does the person who visited see things the way they reported in their report? Is that observation worth considering? And what can you do to change that perception if it's something that you think it's worth considering? Now, I'd like to give just a little bit of information about rural communities first. We work with all of the land-grant universities in the United States through the extension system. At some point or another, we share information, we share program ideas, and Ben Winchester from University of Minnesota Extension is a senior researcher. He's done a lot of research on rural communities, and some of his findings are, in a survey to newcomers to rural communities, jobs are not part of the top 10 reasons they come to a rural community. It's usually a simpler pace of life, safety, low-cost housing. He also says it's a myth that everybody in town knows each other in small towns. Some people have been in town for years and they don't know the person across the street. They don't know some of the activities and events that are going on in town. So he recommends having a get-to-know-each-other dinner for newcomers so they can network with people who are already in town, find out from the city council, the schools, the churches, what's happening in town and ways that they can get involved. He also says if you bring 7 people to a 700 population town community every year for 10 years, you're going to have a 10% increase in population. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it could be a challenge with housing if you're bringing that many people to town, but it is achievable. You're also your own worst enemies in many communities. Those gatekeepers, those people at the gas stations, the grocery store, the restaurants. If you are traveling through a town and you come into those establishments and say, what's there to do here? A lot of times in smaller communities, they'll say nothing. There's nothing to do here. It's boring. And those travelers keep on going. You know, they don't stop and explore the town, explore the museums, the restaurants, and things like that. So it's a good idea to educate those people who are that front line for the people coming into town, to let them know what there is to do in town, even if that's printing up a brochure and taking it to the businesses so they can pull that out and give to new people coming through the community. And don't say you have to live here 20 years to be part of the inside group. If someone is asking to be involved in the community, they might have ideas. And that's going to turn them off quite a bit if they get told, you know, we just need you as a warm body on the board. That's our requirements.
Yeah.
75% of rural homeowners are baby boomers and older, 30% are over the age of 75. So housing is going to be freed up in the future as baby boomers retire and move closer to medical services. But rural communities need retirement housing, not necessarily nursing facilities. Something that's maintenance free, that you don't have to worry about mowing. You don't have to worry about scraping the snow off your driveway or your sidewalks. That could be something that you can do to retain seniors. Ben Winchester was our guest on one of our first Friday entrepreneurship calls, which is recorded on the K-State Research and Extension Community Vitality site. And if you look at the back or the front of this card with our pictures on it, the address to get to that site is here. So if you'd like to hear more from Ben Winchester, you can definitely go there. So now we're going to get into the data. We're using 2010 data and estimates for 2017, but I will say the estimates sometimes vary quite a bit. If you go into the estimate data, it'll say anything plus or minus 50, plus or minus 95. In a smaller community, that's not very accurate. So we're just going to go with the 2010 data as the stable data that we have right now. In the year 2000, in St. John, the population was 1,318. In the 2010 census, that population dropped 1.74% to 1,295. State of Kansas during that same time period went up 6.1%. The estimate for 2017 is that St. John had an increase of almost 7% in population, where the state of Kansas had an increase of about 8%. So that would put it at about 1,400 people. Education level, pretty much on par with the state, 89.2% high school or equivalent, 90.5% in the state, and college educated is bachelor's degree and above according to the Census Department, so 24.8% in Stafford and the state of Kansas. Poverty rate is lower here than the state average. Median age is 42.7, which is a bit higher than the state, and median household income is $50,000, where the state is about $55,000. Before visitors even got into their cars, we asked them to get online and find out what kind of information was available about the city of St. John. They found the city's official website, stjohnkansas.com, and we asked them to look at it on their phones, on their tablets, on their desktops, however they would normally access a website. And they felt the website was easy to navigate. It was very comprehensive, up-to-date information, and they were impressed with the ability to pay their bills, tickets, fines, apply for licenses, permits, job openings, get a library card, and zoning changes. Nobody mentioned the city's Facebook page. A lot of communities, they do. I went ahead and did a search on this just to find out if there was a reason why they didn't mention the social media. And I found the first result that comes up is a 2013 version of the city's Facebook page. And subsequent results are not actually the main current Facebook page, but it's posts from the main current page. So 391 people like and 409 people follow the 2013 version of the city's Facebook page. 720 people like and 745 people follow the current version. A lot of those people are probably the same, but if there's a way you can get in there and recover that password or log in information somehow to deactivate it or tell people this is where the page really is, that might be useful. But it's a difficult process sometimes to do. Yeah.
You could still
Whoops.
unplug them.
Come on.
That's the link, probably the link from the other one to this one. I have to figure out how to do that.
I'm guessing that's the next one. Okay.
'Cause it's different.
Next step was a 5-minute first impression. We do eventually ask people to get out of their car and start walking around, but this is coming into town from the north to south, all the main entrances to the community. Drive through downtown. What is your impression of St. John, Kansas as you first come into town? St. John appears to be a cute little community. Very historic feel, but not dated. Kind of run down in some areas, but there's a lot of potential, and there seem to be a lot of resources in the area. They felt that some signage wasn't clear, and they specifically mentioned the school sign on the outskirts of town, that it was difficult to see as they were driving by. And I checked it tonight on the way through, and the wording was a little bit small, so you could tell it was a school sign, but you couldn't tell what was written on it. The town appeared to be well maintained. The streets were clean for the most part. The highway into town was very smooth, but they didn't seem like they didn't see very many people out and about in town once they did get here. One visitor came with children, and they were very excited to see the goats and the horses on the way into town.
Good job, Carla. Good job, Carla.
They felt the welcome signs were very nice. The welcome sign area was well mowed, and the entrance area coming up to town was well mowed, well taken care of. They noted a business district sign. They didn't see there was as much coming in from the south as there was the north. They didn't see a lot of residential or commercial in the south, but they saw a lot more commercial activity coming in from the north. They felt the town square was beautiful. They liked the park benches. They noticed that the fountain was being repaired. Some of them later in the report said they wish they really could have seen the fountain, and that's probably going to bring a lot of people to the community once that's back in place. Great landscaping and trees in the square. They were impressed with some of the nameplates for the trees, though some of them were a little faded, so they couldn't tell what some of the trees were. Nice sidewalks and benches downtown. Some very nice buildings, some historic, but some appeared to no longer be in use or were kind of run down. Adequate parking. They said you could probably park just about anywhere to do just about anything downtown around the square. There's plenty of spaces to park. The county building is amazing. They thought that the county building and the annex were great. The landscaping was great. The structures themselves were really amazing. Landscaping and streetscaping outside of the square area, though, was minimal. Streets were not in great shape in all places. The town just appeared to be not busy. One of the visitors came on a Saturday, and they were disappointed that there wasn't really much open downtown on Saturday. And they didn't notice any public bathrooms or Wi-Fi. And we ask this, if you have a park downtown, if you have businesses downtown, and people are going to be spending time downtown, is there anywhere they can stop and use the restroom, or can they log into Wi-Fi? Especially in some rural areas, it's hard to get a cell signal. If they're wanting to check schedules, business hours, send pictures of something back to their family, if they don't have Wi-Fi access, that might be difficult to do, but not all communities have that. They noted some of the businesses downtown, the banks, the attorney's office, the thrift store, the restaurants. They felt the pizza restaurant staff was very friendly and helpful. The thrift store staff was also very friendly. And from those visits, they got the impression that this was a very welcoming community. Outside of the downtown area, retail shopping areas, they noted these businesses: equipment sales, gas station, restaurant, Dollar General and White's, liquor store, auto repair, chiropractor, lumberyard, beauty salons, USDA service center. And they felt if there was something that you could not get here in town, that Pratt was close enough that people could just drive down there and get what they needed there. The grocery store was probably the highlight of the outside retail areas, outside of the downtown area. They really couldn't say enough about the grocery store. Had a nice variety, healthy foods, ethnic foods, great produce. The staff was excellent. The owner or manager that was on staff on shift at the time was handling the staff kindly, waiting on customers, and was very polite and professional.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Is this the town where the white grocery store's pretty new?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was in there. It's very nice.
Yeah.
I went in.
Now, since they're going to be in town anyway, we asked them to look for this, but normally, if somebody's looking to build a larger commercial business or an industry, manufacturing facility, they're not going to go and drive through the community and look for potential properties. The Kansas Department of Commerce has a Location 1 service that your economic development staff here in the community would list any potential property sites on. Entrepreneurs who choose to start their businesses are responsible for 63% of net new jobs in the United States every year. And a lot of small town businesses say they can't compete with Amazon, they can't compete with Walmart in larger communities, but there are ways to market your town and your businesses and your products successfully globally. So we did ask again, what kind of industrial areas or commercial areas did they see? Some visitors said they didn't seem like it was really concentrated in one area, or they weren't sure if what they were looking at was industrial or commercial areas. Others said that industrial areas were easy to spot, and perhaps some of the former industrial areas became surrounded by residential areas over time. They thought there was plenty of room to expand outside of town if the land was available for purchase and if the land could be rezoned for that new purpose. We asked about healthcare. One visitor did not find any obvious hospitals or emergency medical services while driving through town. Others did observe the hospital, as well as chiropractor, dentist, and county emergency services. They found a nursing facility, senior living, also observed, and all appeared to be in great condition. Good landscaping, good building structures. Housing. So housing was a little dated in some areas, and some needed maintenance, but overall it was a welcoming small town feel. There was a broad range of options. They found apartments available all the way up to multi-level homes and ranches. They looked online prior to coming here, and they saw that there were properties for sale, but once they got here, they didn't see much evidence of signs in yards indicating what properties were for sale. And that went for rent as well. They noted very many beautiful houses, large houses in town with good landscaping, and they were upkept very well. But they also mentioned that it didn't seem like there weren't ordinances in town, or there weren't ordinances that were being enforced in town for different types of property issues, anywhere ranging from lawns, lawn size, or just property condition. They wondered if it was possible to clean up some of those properties. They also noted that if somebody is looking for a place to live, some of these properties were mixed in with some of the nicer homes, so it might be a deterrent to somebody looking at this town. And again, some apartments were observed there. This is the housing data from 2010, and at that time there were 642 housing units in town. 534 were occupied, 108 were vacant. Owner-occupied of those 534, 404 were owner-occupied, and 130 were rental properties.
That was
That is not.
That was from the 2010.
Yeah, we
census.
don't have that.
Back then either.
We-
So it's probably
no,
changed a lot in
a lot.
9 years.
You'd be lucky if we have 50 rental properties.
Okay.
I still think that's pretty.
So the school website, they felt that the school website was very comprehensive and helpful. The USD350.com. A lot of information could be found easily on the website and also in the community itself. One visitor did not notice the middle school. It looks like it's combined together. Elementary through high school were observed, as well as the preschool. They felt the K-12 buildings appeared to be a little bit older. Some of them might have needed some paint, and the buildings and grounds could be updated a little bit with some landscaping maybe. Signage was hard to follow, at least for finding parking. It was difficult for people to find parking if they were going to come to the school area. They did like the slogan of purpose, pride, and passion. They toured the football complex. They noted limited parking, but it was a very well maintained facility. Childcare, the number of children roughly, and this is countywide, they did observe 3 daycare centers, by the way, in town, but they didn't know what pricing was there, if it was affordable or not. Number of children under the age of 6 in Stafford County is 313. Those children, number of parents in the workforce, 61% have all parents in the workforce of those 313. The capacity of child care centers across the county is 50. They can handle 50 youngsters in their child care centers.
This says desired capacity.
Desired
This is-
capacity. That's how much they want to have in their
Okay,
facility.
It's not what they have.
Right. It's how much they want to have in their facility. So if they only have 20 in their facility, but they can hold 25, that's their the desired capacity is 25. So the extent that capacity meets potential need, it's only 26% of the need is met across the county. And if you're interested in looking into a child care action plan, we got this information from kansaschildcareaware.org, and that information will be on the slideshow online later. Churches, we asked about faith and religion. If you're coming to town, you might want to have a place to worship. A few different churches were observed. There was a good representation of denominations. The Methodist Church campus, they felt that was nice with the landscaping in the building. But they couldn't find any evidence of any faith-based community services in town, like clothes closet, food bank, community dinners, anything like that. They felt that with the information on the signs of the churches, they didn't really see any flyers around the community. They felt that it was more of a come to service and go home type of thing, and there wasn't really much outside of that. For civic organizations, we're talking like Lions Club, Rotary Club, Masonic lodges, things like that. They found the Senior Center and they found the Odd Fellows Hall. No other civic groups observed. And again, with the civic organizations, they didn't really see any evidence of any activities outside of those buildings. They didn't see any events, services, or contributions. Contributions could be park equipment with a plaque on it saying this park equipment was donated by such and such organization, benches downtown. Sometimes they say donated by the Odd Fellows or the Masonic Lodge or whatever. But they did not notice any of those types of things in the community. Public infrastructure. They appreciated the brick streets. They felt the brick streets looked very nice. They were well maintained. Most of the sidewalks were walkable. Signs were in good condition, the directional signs. Most yards were in good shape, but they did feel that a few houses and yards needed attention for mowing or for ordinances. City Hall was very welcoming and informative. Some of the visitors exchanged information about issues that they were having in Conway Springs compared to what might be going on here. They truly enjoyed the visit to City Hall. Fire, EMS, and police is important because your insurance companies calculate your personal property and your business property rates based on some of those things like police coverage, fire coverage. They noticed police patrolling the town. They saw emergency services building appears to be adequate coverage, and they found the fire station in town. The library. Now, I thought this was kind of interesting. One visitor did not go into the library because they felt it was also part of the school system. And they felt this day and age, they felt a little awkward going into a library that was also part of the school system. So they didn't feel like they could go in there. Others loved the library. They loved the maintained grounds, and they thought it was a really good sized building. City parks, apart from the park in the town square, they found another park. They said some of the equipment was new, some of it was dated, but the kids were playing on all of it, and they were having a good time. They found tennis courts, a swimming pool, a ball field, disc golf, and more tree labels in that park, which they really liked, those tree labels. And they also found a memorial water fountain, so if you get thirsty in the park, you can get a drink. Recreation or tourism. We asked them, okay, since you've been in town for a while now, what do you see that this town is well known for? Is there an attraction or is there an event? For St. John, they thought that the town square and fountain, town was very well known for that probably. They saw the farmers market, and some of them actually ended up here during the farmers market and had a chance to shop. And they really enjoyed that. And they did notice the banner for the farmers market as well, advertising that. Any recreation or tourism, any natural or man-made features that could draw people here. They thought, again, the proximity to Pratt was a benefit. Quivira Wildlife Refuge and the RV parks. They felt the library was awesome. Once the fountain in the park is repaired and placed back, they felt that and the town square would be a big draw. Right now, just as the town square itself, maybe not something to bring people in from out of town. And the farmers market might bring people in from out of town. Was there a visitor center or chamber of commerce? No, not a specific visitor center or chamber of commerce, but the visitors said they would definitely start at City Hall or the county courthouse if they wanted more information about the community. And again, the city building had great information and very helpful staff. Okay, what would bring you back? After you go home, what are you thinking about that would give you a reason to come back to St. John? The thrift store was one of them. They really loved their experience at the thrift store. If the town was closer, they said they would definitely come back. The feel of the town is so nice, and they said there's enough to do. They might take a trip back and go camping. So you might have developed some tourism off of this by participating in this program. The most positive observations about the community, okay, the farmers market, the sense of community, the town square, the thrift store, the library, the grocery store, and access to basic needs. The town layout is convenient and easy to navigate. It's close enough to Pratt. If you can't find what you need here, you can go there. The beautiful older homes and the museums. The biggest obstacles and challenges. It is far away from a major city. There are several blighted properties that need to be managed. Enforcement of property ordinances. Downtown buildings need sprucing up and maybe fill the downtown buildings with shops. Some streets were in rough shape, most were in good shape. Now, Pratt was a benefit to the community, positive observation. In this section, it's also a negative, because if Pratt's just close enough for you to get something that you can't find here, is somebody going to drive down there and do the rest of their shopping instead of doing it here? So shopping local is definitely a challenge, and then bringing young people back to the communities to start businesses and settle and expand the city is a potential challenge. 6 months from now, what are you going to remember about St. John? The town square, the farmers market, the library, the grocery store, some of the neat farms and ranches at the north side of town, the lovely older homes, the friendly city workers, but also the empty buildings like the old theater. What was that like at one point? What could possibly be done with that? Okay.
It's not the empty theater, it's the city building. Like, because I told them that it used to be a theater and showed them all around, but it's not empty, so.
Okay.
It was like a performing.
Yeah, but I mean, there actually was a movie theater here in town.
There was,
Yeah.
The American State Bank, yes, but
Yeah, it was many years, yeah.
So they might have just misunderstood.
Looks like
Yeah.
a theater. Well, the back
Yeah,
of
but
theirs,
then
what
she
she's
looks
talking
like a
about.
theater.
Okay.
On the inside.
So before we go into the resources, some of the things we have available for programs that might help address any issues that you see here or just in general. Definitely thanks again to Jamie, Amanda, Amy for coordinating this. Thanks to the volunteer visitors who went to Conway Springs. That was definitely beneficial. So the next steps for you guys is to decide, is there anything here that you want to address as a community, and what group is going to lead that discussion? I will tell you about some of the other resources we have. I'm the co-coordinator of the Kansas Pride Program, which is a volunteer-based community improvement initiative started by Governor Docking in 1970. It'll be 50 years old next year. We've served over 400 communities across the state that identify their needs, and they work together as volunteers to address those needs. We have grant funding available. We have an online database that you can talk to other communities to find out how they've done certain projects. It's a free program to participate in. St. John was a Pride community in 1979, 1994 to 1997, and 1999 to 2002. So some communities come and go. We have some communities in the state that have been in for all 49 years so far. But we do have education opportunities, help with organization, and grants anywhere from $200 to $15,000 for community projects. We have a new program that I'm leaving with Amy and Amanda here if you're interested in it. It's called the Youth Community Perceptions Program. It's engaging young people in your community to do much like the First Impressions, except for going to another community, they assess their own community. They talk about the things, they identify the things that are important to them, and then they go to City Council and give a presentation to City Council about their findings. We've piloted this across the state this summer in a few communities. Ellis, Kansas, just north of here, used this. The youth determined that they needed bike racks in town because they had parks, they had a swimming pool, they had all these things, but there was nowhere to park your bike and keep it safe. The Ellis Pride Group was at that meeting, that city council meeting, and they said, we'll write a grant to help you put bike racks in town. And they wrote a grant, they got the grant, so now they're putting bike racks in town, all thanks to the young people going in and telling their city council what they felt was important. This engages young people with their community. We found that if young people are engaged in their community, if they feel they've made a difference, if they have a voice in their community, they tend to come back to their communities more often after they finish high school, college, trade school. Trying to think. Schools, school districts. It is now a requirement in the state of Kansas to have community service in order to graduate. So school districts across the state are looking at this program and are going to be plugging it in to their curriculum. This isn't just for schools though. It could also be for local 4-H clubs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church youth groups. Any group that has an adult leader that serves young people can participate in this program. So more information. The link will also take you to that webpage once we put this online tomorrow. We have grant writing workshops. If you haven't had one in this area recently, you can have a grant writing workshop here, and we come out and we tell you all of the different sources for data to support your grant, all of the different sources to find grants to write for, how to budget for it, how to write for the grant, how to do the reporting for the grant. We surveyed the participants of the grant writing workshop since 2015. 32% of participants responded, and they have written for and received $6.2 million worth of grants since we started doing these grant workshops. I mentioned the First Friday e-calls. We have lots of topics on the First Friday e-calls, including Ben Winchester. And the Kansas Department of Agriculture is working on a strategic growth initiative as a pilot program. Russell Plashka, I got to hear him talk last week in Kiowa, and it's a very interactive presentation. The Department of Agriculture works with your community to help identify best opportunities using the resources that you have in your community. So we'll have that link available in the presentation as well. So that's it for the first impressions side of the presentation. Does anybody have any questions about any of the findings or the process itself?
When you linked this with Conway Springs, is it based off of just the amount of people? Is that the main?
It's based on the amount of people and the distance. We could find probably a closer community of similar size, but the chances of you having been to that community before are higher. So yeah.
To have a fresh look when you arrive.
So we try to get you in a community that you probably didn't have a reason to go to in the first place otherwise, just so you're fresh look there. Now you're a little bit different because you're the county seat, so you have some different services and things here. And we might get you within 100 or 200 people, depending on who's interested in participating in the program. Okay. Any other questions? This report will be online probably tomorrow, and you can see all of the other communities that have participated in the program as well. Their presentations and their compiled reports are online if you want to see what they've gone through and some of the issues that they might be facing. So I guess, Renee, if you want to talk a little bit about Department of Commerce resources.
Hi, Renee Lippincott. I work for the Kansas Department of Commerce for South Central Region. Now that's just our definition of my area to work in, okay? There's all kinds of regions that match or mismatch, but when we divide up, I have South Central and Stafford is one of my counties. And so I was tickled to be able to come and see this. I try to make it to these first impressions because it's nice to see how you guys react to things they say, you know, see what's important to you. It's nice to see what other people see when they come in. I have my own impressions when I come into towns. And so I think this is a really excellent way to like put on somebody else's set of eyeballs. Because things become invisible to us when we live there all the time. A lot of times there's eyesores that you've just gotten so used to, they hardly impact you anymore. And so it's nice if somebody comes in and goes, whoa, that was great. And then all of a sudden the railroad tracks were all overgrown with weeds. And you know, you get that kind of impression. And so what I'm really curious about is I would like to hear a little more feedback. Is there anything that you didn't agree with? Is there anything that you thought spot on? You know, did anything come to the surface for you that you had thoughts about that you have not shared? This is the fun part. This is when you guys can really discover things that, you know, by your own discussion. This is one opinion of a group that came that didn't know anything about you. You guys know. But did anything happen? You say you had an impression?
Well, yeah, when did we came out here in what, February?
Oh,
Yeah, we visited several times before moving here.
Several times before moving here.
I would say the report's spot on exactly to what we felt.
good.
But still was enough to bring us here.
Yes.
You know, yeah, we see that some of the buildings are needing help and that, but it
That's
still is
rural.
attractive
That's
enough.
So terribly
Yeah.
St. John, sorry guys.
Yeah.
Stafford County, St. John. Anyhow, yeah, that's a challenge in every rural community, you know, that has enough isolation that it's hard. Because think about this, okay, you've got a commercial property, you know, that's built in the late 1800s to early 1900s. Now, there was a time when income was good in that building and it maintained itself. They paid the taxes and insurance and maintenance and this and that and made somebody some money. Or it was their own business in there and it was serving a good purpose. When the interstate highways came into being, we started traveling and being able to go other places, you know, to get things, you know, and everything started to decline in our downtowns. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really feel like getting mad at property owners with property downtown is constructive because they have this property that they're just lucky to pay the taxes and insurance, and some of them, if they own them, maybe don't even have insurance on them. Mm-hmm. And so the trick is finding a way to encourage and maybe help out a little bit with the recovery of those businesses. This is my opinion about downtown businesses. Yes, there is a property owner, but you know what? The bigger owner, in a sense, is the community, because that held the past of jobs creation, services provided, this and that. It's currently where it is now, but what we hope is that it will go on into the future to offer more opportunity for this community. If they all just went away, what would you have for, you know, for hope? Because mostly it's just banks that can afford to build in small towns. And so they're a treasure, you know. So if there's ways to help stimulate improvements, like an idea I love is on those vacant buildings, get some volunteers, you know, work with the owner, but get some volunteers to maybe help clean up the windows. 4-H'ers could put displays in the windows. And then you could put a sign in the window. Does it, you know, maybe this building is waiting for your business, or, you know, put little hints, something to make people think. But, you know, you don't have to completely close off a window that has a nasty inside. If you just put some things on display, it stops your eye at that plane, okay? But yet it isn't screaming, hey, you gotta hide things back here, you know? But that kind of attention in downtown can bring some life back. It might just bring hope back too. People that have thought about some, you know, would like to start a business, and, you know, it might make them think. But, you know, that you got to stop the decay now if you can, because it gets more and more expensive. But it's things like that. And so my job is to work with communities now. I used to be working with business and communities. Now they focus me totally on community. And so what I hope to do, and I have stuff for you, I just wanted to hear this first before I send it to you. We talked housing. And but you know, what I hope to do is be a resource, a connector to resources and ideas. I was Main Street director for 7 years, and boy, they train the heck out of you. They do. In fact, you go home and you don't have a place to use it all. But, you know, I like the opportunity to be able to share my enthusiasm and passion about rural communities out with my rural communities. But here's the thing. You can look at me as one of those big lighters, you know, like that. But I have no fuel. So I might come to town and be able to go like that, be that spark. But we've got to have fuel. People in town willing to work together to make a difference. And I will say the Pride organization is an excellent format to have in a community. It's the structure with assistance, knowledge, all kinds of things. Other prides that are willing to share how they do things, you know. You got to be enthused and dig in. But it's a great way to bring people in town that care together. Nobody's going to tell you what you have to do, right?
Right.
You figure out what your community wants, what's important, and a good pride organization takes its lead from the community about things to work on. A lot of little towns, they just keep that entrance open. You know, maybe that's all they get done, or a few other little projects. Others have done big things, you know. You have to have that spark plug, your own person that's going to like that. But the trick is not letting them be the one that does all the work, because it won't last. And see, you've been through it several times. So the trick is keeping good leadership, rotating in and out, you know, provide a lot of fun opportunity for people to make a difference and be a leader in your community and helping it step up, you know, to make it even a better place. Because this is a great town. This is a great town. But that's my role, is to try and help. I can't stick around and do the work. But when you guys need information, resources, advice, a little spark, that's what I try to offer. And I'm just there. I tell cities that I'm kind of like a committee member that doesn't ever show up. But if you need me, you let me know what you need, and I'll try and find those things for you. And I do have some things I'm going to be sharing with her. And but I really would very much appreciate it if, after you go home, can they share anything, thoughts with you? Bring it in on a piece of paper or email her. Don't make her write it down. Right? Right. But if you guys start talking and you do have some feelings about what you heard and about your hopes for St. John, you know, you can look at all these questions and think about St. John and what you think, you know, and you two are particularly ripe for that because you're here so recently. But this is a great starting point. This is a great way to be enthusiastic. You know what, I think it would be great to put these around town. You know, the results. You know, like put them in a little binder or something. You could put them at the library, a couple copies. You know, you could take it. You have a senior center. Leave a set there, but you know, just leave them around. Maybe give them to the churches, you know, to put out. But see if you can spark any more passion. You know, Maxville, after one of these, started a pride organization, and they're still going at it because this inspired them. And but you know, you didn't have a big turnout tonight, but you had a good people turnout. But you guys can carry the word out and start are there copies in the morning at 6:30 a.m. around here like every other?
He's our news guy, so.
Oh dear, I forgot to yak.
Shortstop.
But boy, all of those morning copies are a great place to spread the word.
Exactly where they're at.
There you go. That's a great place to get the word out.
Yeah.
And so I very much support your efforts to be a great town, because you really are. And I tell you that White's, last time I was here, when I visited with her, I stopped in there because I was starving and I can't eat gluten. So I went in and I couldn't believe what a beautiful store that was. I asked questions because it was startling to see what a great asset you guys have. Talk about making it a lot easier to move to town if you're new. Having that nice grocery store with all those resources right there. So make sure everybody shops local. You know, the problem isn't, the challenge is not to be so exclusively out of town. Okay, maybe you can't find everything in town, but you got to start here. You got to be willing to pay maybe a little more for things here, because it is no fun when resources leave, and you will deeply regret not being part of the solution. You know, so there you go. Okay, I'm going to sit down now.
Renee's right though. We don't come in from Sterling, Arlington, Topeka, Manhattan and tell you this is what you need to do, because there's no buy-in locally if that's the case. I mean, we might want to see a 4th of July celebration in a McDonald's, but that's because we're from different areas. It might not work here.
Yeah.
You might not have the
Dean Wade McDonald's.
the population here.
We need
You might not have the political structure.
With the stop.
I do have Kansas Pride Program reports.
We have to get on
here.
Oh yeah, guys, this is good.
So the Kansas Pride Program reports we publish every year, and this highlights all of the communities in the state that were Pride communities that last year. We've got Wilson Pride, Caney Community Betterment Group. They call themselves all kinds of things across the state, but it talks about the different grants that they received and what projects they did in those communities to receive those grants, as well as some of the awards that we gave out and some of our partnerships. From the Department of Commerce to the Kansas Masons, the Kansas Masonic Foundation is our partner with the Pride program now, and the Kansas Pride Incorporated Board of Directors is our nonprofit arm, and then we have sponsors of the program like Midwest Energy, Kansas Gas, etc. So if you're interested,
Yeah, somebody needs to look at that. Not you.
Thank you.
I know of nothing better for a small town to implement, to try and create change in positive ways. It doesn't have to be a terrible work thing. It can be what you want it to be. You know, it has great advice about how to build a good organization. I would really recommend that you concentrate on sticking to their method, because it keeps you from sinking. It helps you be more successful. And like for instance, they don't want you to just get a committee together and say, well, what shall we do in town? What shall we do? No, they want you to be open, go out and learn from the community through surveys or all community meetings or whatever. Find out how people feel. What would they like to see happen? And you know, then you move from there. And what a pride group can also be is they can provide the leadership to let other groups play into an effort, like even the youth. You know, they can be brought in to help with some of these things. But somebody's got to, you know, organize it. But the trick is, don't let it ever become one person's job or two people, like everything does. You know, we're all on the same committees if you're a volunteer, right? And so what you want to do is be inclusive. I say whenever something good happens, that you be rewarding in how you respond to your volunteers. You really recognize them and you have lots of fun. But it's such a good feeling when you can make a difference in your own community. And if even just the act of bringing people together to work together is a great good that you can do in your town to bring everybody more connected. So there you go. Anyhow, if you have more thoughts, and you can write them out or email, but don't just walk in and tell her. Maybe she can send them to me if anything happens to come in. But very interested in the future of St. John. This used to be a Main Street.
The Main Street
Yes,
organization.
it was a Main Street program once.
And I think they participated in First Impression, was it back in the 90s? And that's how we got the lighting down 4th Street, I believe.
So initially, the First Impressions program cost to participate in. Some communities have said it was kind of a hefty fee to participate in. But we've tried to design it so it's free, other than the cost of gas and if you want to buy anything at a restaurant or a store when you're in town.
So I think Main Street, and I wasn't living here at that time, but I do think that helped get awnings on the buildings.
There was
and,
a lot of good, yeah,
Um,
that's kind of thing we would
it's
do.
kind of what really updated downtown. And I know we were impressed when we moved here. We came to the Christmas tree farm and then we came downtown to eat. And we were impressed with what had been done downtown. But it hasn't seen much since then. And I know people get burnt out. And that's kind of what we ran into was volunteer burnout. But I think there's enough interest now that we could probably get things going again.
Well, and that can be done through a pride. A pride organization, if it wants to make one of its focuses cleaning up downtown, I don't think anybody's going to say you can't do that, right?
No, yeah, you can do
I mean,
anything
it could be one. It could be something that you vote. If that's important to the town, that we do something downtown, they might. You could focus on one, and I'm full of ideas. I told you they stuffed my brain. But there's all kinds of things to improve downtown that don't cost a fortune.
Right, Kinsley, Kansas, for example. That's out of your area, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a little bit too far west. They own a thrift store, their pride group. They get about $35,000 a year from that thrift store.
Wow.
And with some of that money, they offer small grants to people who are willing to open businesses downtown. And that money can go to painting up the building, fixing it up so it's ready to have people come in, turning on the utilities, whatever. So that's definitely a focus you could do as well. It could be economic, it could be community improvement.
That's
anything.
right. It can be.
I
It's
might
what's important to you.
just add to that and say that as Stafford County Extension, we are in the process of districting with Edwards County. So we're going to become, like we're going to erase the county line there. Because in Extension, we work in ag, family and consumer science, 4-H, and community vitality. We don't get to the community vitality part of it as much as we'd like to. With districting with another county, we're going to have more people to work on that. And we really felt like Edwards County was a good match for us because of what they're doing in areas like that. So we will have access
That's great.
to that as we move forward. So we're excited about that.
That's wonderful.
Do you have any other events coming up, programs that you guys are doing here?
Amanda has a couple.
I do have a couple. I am working on bringing farm financial skills for Kansas women in agriculture to Stafford County. That will be a 4-week series in January. So stay tuned for some news about that coming out.
Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate you coming out, and I'll be here for a little while packing up things. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And if you're interested in those reports about what other communities have done across the state with the Pride program, I've got last year's as well as a couple of other years in the past. So, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.